G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. It's almost Christmas and of course a lot of people are going to be looking for drones as gifts, either to get or to give, and so I was quite pleased when I was sent this. This is the JJPro Hax entry-level aerial photography drone. Now recently I reviewed the Bugs 2 and that I found to be a pretty good drone, pretty damn good as an entry-level drone. This is cheaper, so I was hoping that this would be every bit as good, and in some respects it is. In other respects, it's not. So let's take a bit of a look at the drone itself. Whoops, from the messy bench. There it is. Look, it's a drone. What can I say? It's actually smaller than the Bugs, but it seems to be quite solidly made. I think you'd have trouble breaking this. It was a bit disappointing. It only came with 2 spare props. It didn't come with 2 sets of props. It came with 6 props. So, you know, really, come on, for the price of a couple of props, why not just give us 2 sets? Because these will get broken. Doesn't matter what you do, these will get broken. Now, this one comes with the optional camera. This is a camera. This is a self-contained camera bay with an HD camera and a 5G Wi-Fi transmitter, which is kind of cool. And it just slots into the bottom of the drone, like, oops, and it takes an SD card as well, micro SD card in the side, and you just slot it in here, bing, done, ready to record. But there are some problems with this. Let me tell you about that later. Right. It also comes with a battery. 2-cell, 2000 milliampere hour battery. The charge is built into the battery. Honestly, I kid you not. There's a micro USB connector there. So they give you a lead that you plug into your standard wall wart or even your computer, and it'll charge the battery directly. But it's going to be incredibly slow. I think they say allow 3 hours. Really, 3 hours? That's like, what's that? 5 to 8 flights a day is all you're going to get out of this thing if you use the charger. And of course there's no balance lead. You can't use a 4-button charger, which probably for people who've just bought a drone, they don't have a 4-button charger, so that is not an issue. But it would be nice if the charger was a little bit more athletic than having a simple tiny one built into there and relying on a little USB power supply. Not so hot. LEDs on the bottom of the arms, as most of them do, but honestly, pathetic. You can't see them in bright sunlight. And I mean, some of the setup requires you initially to do a calibration, and then these lights will tell you certain statuses of the craft, but you can't see them in bright sunlight. They just fade away. Like, there's no point in having them at night. They probably look really nice, but in the daytime they're just almost invisible, at least in our bright summer sunlight, right? So it's a proprietary battery. You have to buy them off the JJPro people or whatever. There you go. So it has GPS, which means it has position hold, has altitude hold, it has return to home, it has auto takeoff and auto land. So those are all cool features for a little drone. And this is a 1080p camera, but there's some problems with the camera, which I'll get to in a moment. But let's take a look at this transmitter. Now, it's a tiny form factor like the one on the Bugs 2, but it's not as good. There's tiny little LCD. See how small that LCD is in here, and it's also, it's negative, it's inverse, it's reverse. So instead of being black characters on a clear background, it's actually a black background with clear characters. And I, with my old man eyes, couldn't read the number of satellites without getting my granny glasses on. So, okay, if you're young, which I guess a fair percentage of the market for these things is going to be people who are quite young, then that's fine. You'll have good enough eyesight to read it. But there's just so much stuff on there, it's easy to get lost. And look, we've got these buttons down the side, but there's nothing to tell you what these buttons do except the manual. Again, I expect people will, I saw, was it one of the people who've already reviewed this stuck little labels on here, and you really have to, because when you're learning you won't remember what these buttons do. On the Bugs 2, it was very clearly labelled. All the buttons were labelled. The only thing that's labelled on this is the little switch up here, which gives you the altitude hold mode, GPS mode, and return to home. So that's quite cool because, you know, you just have to flick between there and there, it'll come back and land. And it does have some other rather cool features. It has geofencing, which means that it'll fly no further than 300 meters away and no higher than 100 meters, which means in most countries you're not going to get into too much trouble. You're not going to fly it beyond visual line of sight. It's not going to fly away on you. As long as you make sure you've got the fencing option turned on, it'll stop at 300 meters, and I think it'll probably even come back home automatically when it bangs into the geofence. It's a really good feature. So yeah, pros and cons, isn't it? Now going back to the drone for a moment, one thing I do like about this compared to the Bugs 2 is that you only have to calibrate the compass once. At least that's what they tell you. It remembers the compass cal. So unlike the Bugs 2, which was a real pain because before you flew it, every time you had to recalibrate the compass. However, calibrating the compass on this thing is a damn nightmare. It took me 20 minutes because no matter how often I twirled it, the little lights wouldn't change. Finally I got it to calibrate, so it took a lot of farting around. And even then I don't think the cal was very good, because on return to home it was toilet bowling. If you don't know what that is, it goes around in big circles like this instead of just flying normally. It's sort of spiraling around the center point because the compass isn't properly calibrated. So I don't know if this has a faulty compass on this particular unit or whether it's just a characteristic of the Hax quad, but it's really kind of crappy. And so I don't know. Like if you took the Bugs 2 and you took the Hax and you took the best of both, you'd have a fantastic killer entry-level quad. But both of them have their downsides, and you know, you just have to live with them, I suppose. Now let's talk about this camera. This is an entry-level aerial photography drone, and it has a 5G link back to your smartphone. My smartphone doesn't do 5G. My smartphone has a very low IQ, so it only does 2.4. So I can't use the smartphone on the transmitter. Unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. However, I've seen other reviews where the image seems quite good and it seems to have reasonable range. But on this one, I put an SD card in it, micro SD card in it, did some recording, went back to edit it up to put in this review, and my computer wouldn't recognize the format. Now it's an MP4, no, it's H.264 file in an AVI wrapper. But my latest version of what was Sony's Movie Studio Platinum Edition won't import the file. Why didn't they make it an MOV file or an MP4 file? Why is it an AVI file? This is the 21st century, seriously. And even then, when I found something that would play it, it was upside down. Honestly, the picture was upside down on the micro SD card. Not a problem if you're putting it on your phone, just turn your phone over. But if you want to edit it into some video, it's not very compatible, and it's upside down. And there was jello, and this drone is not. I flew it in a fairly strong wind, right? The wind was 20 kilometers an hour. It's pretty good testimony to the performance of this thing, that it flew in a strong wind. But it was, whereas the Bugs would tend to just hold a level into the wind, this was up and down, up and down, up and down, so it's not very stable. But it is cheap, and you get what you pay for in this world. No free lunches. You get what you pay for. You're going to pay less than a Bugs 2, and you get less than a Bugs 2. Which would I choose? I don't know. I don't know. That's entirely up to you. It really is a decision that only you can make based on how much money you got in the bank and what you're expecting from an entry-level drone. I would say on this, the cameras, you're not going to get phantom-like footage. It's just forget it. Forget it. You might get some reasonable stills. It does appear to be 1080p, but it's only 20 frames per second. That's like, what? 20 frames? This is, you know, 1980s technology almost. So, but it's built to a price. Built to a price. So I'm trying to find all the good things and the bad things. I think I've covered most of them. Yeah, there's good and bad. Good and bad. Now, it is cheap. Now, if you go out there and buy this and you just want a drone to fly around and that will not fly away, and that when you push a button it comes back and lands at your feet, this will do the trick. Trust me, this does do what it says on the box. If you want a drone to really do anything like, you know, get nice pictures of the park or your house and things, give it a miss. Give it a miss. The camera's not up to it. You know, it's really crappy. It's crappy in a different way because the Bugs camera was crappy too, but it was kind of, the white balance drifted and it was kind of, wasn't very sharp. This is nice and sharp, but it's a low frame rate, which means jello is a real issue, and it's just kind of blocky and yucky. So meh. And the file's not standard, so you can't use it in many devices. There you go. I hope I've illuminated you as to this thing. Now, I took it out and flew it on a windy day. It took off. It held its position reasonably well, and unlike the Bugs 2, it did good altitude hold. The Bugs 2 kept descending all the time. I had to put a bit of power in it. It would keep descending. This holds its position really quite well. Not so much in terms of X and Y, horizontal coordinates, but in terms of altitude, it did a really good job. When I flew it away, it didn't drop, because the Bugs, every time I flew it away, I had to put power on because it wouldn't hold altitude. This does a good job of altitude hold. And it came back, when I hit the return to home, it climbed up to about 10 or 15 meters, and then came back and landed within 2 meters of the launch point. That's pretty good. That's what's probably better than you'd expect for a really low-cost drone like this. So there you go. That's my summary. That's my wrap on this. It is built to a price. That's all I can say. It's built to a price. It does what it says on the box, but sometimes not very well. And I'm concerned that if this isn't, if the compass calibration thing on here, it's really dodgy, really dodgy. Part of it is because you can't see those LEDs, and you rely on the LED status to tell you what to do next. And in the daylight, you can't see them, so what's the point in having them? There you go. Now, if you've got questions, comments, anything to say, you got one of these? How'd you find it? But if you are, have other questions on this particular model of drone, then please let me know. Now, this was provided for review by these people. See? Those people there. So there's a link in the description. Go to that link if you're thinking of buying one. And I mean, okay, if you're going to buy this for a kid or someone who just wants a drone to fly around, they're not going to be disappointed. It flies really quite well for what it is. So if you want to buy one, I think there may be a discount code. I can't remember. What I've decided to do is, this affiliate scheme stuff, it's crap. So I'm going to invite companies to give me a discount code. So instead of me making $5 or $10 out of every one of these that's sold, you get the savings. You get to, hopefully they'll knock $5 or $10 off it. So that means that there's no incentive for me to tell you this is good when it's not, or tell you it's bad when it isn't, because it makes no difference to me whether you buy this or not. But if you want to buy it, there's a link in the description. You will get the savings, not me. So my reviews will stay independent and unbiased. And there you go, good and bad. And would I buy the Bugs 2 or this? I've got to be honest, I'd buy the Bugs 2. There you go. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Well, I'm spinning it around, but there's nothing happening. Still got the blue light. The blue light's still on. It's not going off. Well, hung it. No, it is now. I tell a lie.
Turns constant.
Yeah, then I do that.
Light turns off. There we go.
Yeah, so shit, it took a lot of calibrating.
Yeah. LED. Well, it's the first time. LED green and blue lights turn on once it's fully back.
Oh, we got green, but we don't have any blue yet. How many times do you have to turn this thing? It sounds like it's a wind-up. Yeah, that's pretty good. That seems to be starting. It's obviously a bit windy here at the moment. We've got a little bit of drift. And altitude hold is a bit coming and going, but that's not so bad. I didn't actually take the thing off, I want to get some footage, so I will land it. That's supposed to land it. There we go. It's landing. Well, a bit of bouncy. That's alright. That was good. That worked. Photo video number 11. Seems to work pretty well. Seems to work pretty well indeed. So let's turn it around now. So it's fighting. The GPS is certainly working quite well. So let's just go a little bit downwind. See the wind. Actually, it's doing really well in the wind, I've got to say. Very well in the wind. Let's go a bit further down here. And it's settling in its position. It's toilet bowling a bit, so the compass could do with better calibration. Let's do a return to home. Now we're in return to home, it's going up so as to clear any obstacles. And it should come back and land pretty much at our feet with any luck. Here it comes, coming back, and now it should start descending. And indeed, it is coming down. Fighting that wind, a very strong wind today. The drone, so it's doing pretty well. It's got a bit of toilet bowling. That's probably partly due to the wind. Here we go. Let's see how far away it lands from the launch point. A lot of toilet bowling going on here. There we go. It has landed. And I'll stop the video.